Out there in YouTube land. I've had a lot of comments on you need to get a log turner, you need to get a log turner on this mill to handle these big logs, or even on the little mill in the back to handle those logs. Let me start off by saying first, I've been sawing for over 30 years, never had a log turner. I wrestled logs that were so big they had to be cut in half long ways to get on the mill in the back, and still the first cut was 10 inches. The logs were over 48 inches round. And I managed to get them through there, and you wrestle them, like this one here I've wrestled and wrestled and wrestled. Now some of the suggestions, they're all good suggestions, but I don't go that way particularly, and I, you know, kind of go down my own path, so to speak, and sometimes the path is good, sometimes the path isn't good. Sometimes you guys give me suggestions and later on I go, daggone, I should have done that earlier, and then I but I do get more suggestions that are like, boy, I'm glad I didn't do that. It creates a lot of problems down the road. Let me show you some of the stuff. A lot of people said, well, you need to just come in here with your loader bucket. Now, if you go back at some of the videos with the little mill in the back, you'll notice there's two runners, one on the left, one on the right, and that's just wide enough to get that loader, because that's what I started with. I could go up there and set a log right on the mill. But I'm not really a good loader operator, and it really wasn't meant to be loaded that way. And I had more crashes than I had success. So I spent more time fixing things from doing that than I did that. And then the second thing was, then you have somebody comes by and, oh, I want this log sawed. Well, how long is it? It's 4.5 feet. Well, you can't fit it in between a space that's 8 feet wide, 4.5 feet. It just doesn't roll up there. So then I put another bunk in on that one in the back. And that's been working good. Another thing is, you know, are you going to pull your logs back, or are they going to go straight through the mill? This is the stuff that a lot of you guys don't even, yeah, some of you think about. But if you're pulling the logs, this is the way the mill is supposed to be set up, or one of the ways. So it comes right back here, and if you pull an inch log off, you can just pull it over the side and bring it back. You know, you leave the little nub on there. They do that over at Wayne's World Garage a lot. So if you want to see what I'm speaking of, drop over there and take a look. And this thing here, I noticed, you know, that I was getting logs or slab woods cut in there, or I normally cut heavy slabs so I wouldn't have that problem. Somebody says, well, why don't you build a thing over this? Frick was not meant to build something over that, okay? So I thought I would try it open and see how I liked it. I don't like it. But now here's what the next thing is. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Okay, you see those two holes there? See those two holes there? See those two holes there? See those two holes? This saw is meant to have a top saw over it, and I have bought a top saw for it. Okay? So if I put this bench in here, am I just wasting my time? Or is it going to go in there? Just, you know, yeah, I can build that, and it would just be, okay, I can't use that anymore. And to give you an idea, okay, we got the sawdust situation on this mill. Now, I was never really keen on where I place this mill on my property, but you don't get everything you want. You just kind of do with what you got to do with what you got to do. And so it's kind of on level ground. Most mills, they like them to drop off at the back, is the way the old farmers used to set them up a long time ago. Now, you might remember this mill is over 70 years old, even though it looks better than I do. But anyhow, the mill in the back, for years, I just shoveled out. And they call this, this is a mud sill here, and that over there is a mud sill. And I could just come in with my loader, and it was only from there to here. And I could just scoop that sawdust out, and it really wasn't too much of a problem. You know, and I scooped it out for years. And you know I'm tighter than most. I don't spend, well, I spend money on different things, but for some reason, a hobby or whatever this is, I don't spend a whole lot of money on. So I went to an auction and I bought a Jeep power unit. It's back here in the woods. I've showed it to you in the past, and it had all sorts of hydraulics on it. And I got that for $20. Okay, so the $20, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Stay there. And well, I bought the grain elevator that's on the back mill. I think I paid 60 bucks for that. And then I said, well, I can use the hydraulics off this to make this work, and next thing I know, I'll be pulling sawdust out instead of having to drag it out. Worked for a long time. It took me a good week to put that together. That's when I was a lot younger and things seemed to be a lot lighter than they are now. I guess I should have you on a tripod so I'm looking at you instead of just wandering around, but my ugly face isn't always what you want to look at. Anyhow, so I got that in, and that works half-assed, to be honest with you. Half the sawdust, even though I have a great big chute underneath there, or a great big funnel underneath there, half the sawdust doesn't, it goes in there and ricochets off. I don't know why. So I wanted to spend some time on this sawdust and get it right. So the blower down there, Frick had a blower on this mill, and how we started out, Frick has a blower that goes on here, and that's what I wanted, okay? And that's what I was going to go with. But then I realized you couldn't have, and had it all together, you couldn't have the wheel for the top saw and the blower wheel on in the same situation. So that was kind of trashed. That plan was trashed. But it's not without being resurrected, okay? There's the blower down there. Now the first setup on the blower, I don't have, that blower came with a mill I bought, okay? So that's good. But the next problem is, where's your sawdust coming out here? Most likely over there, okay? So when you're having, it's got a 16-inch suction line on it. We'll take you over there because I'm sure you guys, there's videos of it cleaning it up, changing the direction of it, doing all sorts of goofy stuff. But there was no money involved. The most money I got involved in this thing is probably the two V-belts. Everything else was around here from scrounging. Everything was around here from scrounging. This came off something. This pulley here came off something. I just don't have any money involved in it at this at all. The PTO shaft is coming off another piece of farm equipment I got in the back. The first, yeah, I spent about $100 and made an adapter on here to hook it up direct, and it probably wouldn't have sucked a feather through it. Okay, that's what it looks like, and that's exactly what this is a big sawdust blower, and it would move a lot of sawdust. The hose here is 16 inches. Now I can neck it down to 12 inches or neck it down to 3 inches. But then you lose half the drag, or half of whatever you got. Now the distance, now the problem that kind of arose with that thing, and I don't really care for, is because then you have to have another motor back here driving it. Okay? Now the one on the Frick, it ran off the shaft. Okay? That was that piece that fell down there, if that video showed. Between that blade and here, I need a 20-foot hose. They want $1,000, and that was a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, for that hose. And I don't know, you know, are you going to throw $1,000 on away on something you not quite sure will work or not? I mean, yeah, I've done it. You know, I guess made mistakes in that direction. So anyhow, so that's kind of why that's sitting where it's sitting, and I might go back to that. I would like something that would just kind of run off the shaft of the thing, so I don't have to run another thing, or just use one motor, I guess, more than anything. Now I have a overhead sawdust chain contraption over here. This came with a mill, another mill that I'd bought, and it's meant for this mill. It's meant for a #1 mill. And that's what this is. It drives from a V-belt off your mandrel, and it goes up, and then that's down in the hole up there. Now these bearings are all locked up, which that doesn't particularly bother me either. They're just cheap little pillow block bearings. There's Cadillac wood. I think this one's locked up too. This is the one that's down in the hole. Well, yeah, you ain't turning it too easy. But I got to take all that stuff off of there, take all that stuff off of there, and try to get that on there. Oh, yeah, that sounds easy. Just put your sawdust drag on there, chain on there. Now, guys, let's go up and think about this. Well, you know, think about this a amongst a bunch of other things. Plus I'm sore. I just hurt. My back has been real stiff the last week and a half. I shouldn't have been wrestling that log. It was stiff before I wrestled that log. So that log isn't what caused it. See this hose here? That's the vacuum hose. That little piece of hose there that's 10 foot long, and there's the other 3 foot of it. I think that was close to, I think $300, $400, $500. I have no idea. I don't remember. I bought it a year ago, and I don't like it. Okay? It's a garbage hose. It's nowhere near the quality of the hose that was on it. It's got a rigid inside instead of a smooth inside, where the old hose on that had a smooth inside. Now on the back mill, you guys said, oh, you got to have steps over it. You got to have steps over that shaft. You got to have steps over that shaft. You remember all those videos? If you're new here, I imagine some people have already told me I need to have, that have seen me saw on the back, you need to put a protector over that shaft. Well, I built this over here thinking, well, that's a good thing to do. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a good plan. But now if I want to put that pulley on here, all this has got to come off. So now all this has got to be taken down to put the pulley drive on it. Okay, the pulley drive won't go back here because it's that part that bolts up that you're looking at bolts into those 4 bolts right there. Okay, so now that was also meant for a wooden husk, not a steel husk. So that means I have to make a spacer to take up the room between here, and probably weld a ledge on. That's all doable. I got no problem with that, really. But now you got to remember those holes there are for that top saw. I don't know if any of you, if you're new here, you probably haven't seen the top saw, but to do any of that stuff, to get up in this area here, all this crap has got to come back off again. And it took me days to put all that on. And a lot of, I mean, this is, can you see? This isn't just screwed together. This thing is bolted together. Okay? It's not screwed. I mean, there are screws in it too. Now here I found I made a mistake, so I had to switch this around. And this board came from another location, but I can't screw the screws in there. So all this has got to come off in order to put that pulley on there that drives that thing down there. I have the pulley. That's it right. This is one of the pulleys right here. And okay, this one here, now you can go out and buy a split pulley. Okay, this drives a hydraulic drive. Okay, that split one there I think drives the overhead chain drag that we're saying. Okay, we've got the overhead chain now. Okay, we put the split pulley in there. Not a problem. Okay, we're doing good. What size belt does it take, guys? Even to get that belt on, you got to come take this whole thing down to put a belt on, and suppose you missed it. Suppose you missed it by a ½ inch. That means you need another whole new belt. Okay, now, so then you're thinking, well, the best thing to do is put an idler on it, which is kind of what I'm thinking about. So what I'm kind of kicking around, a couple different things. Putting a flat belt on there and just run it off the shaft, that'd be fine. And put a flat belt on that chain that's down there, and then put an idler in between. But the problem that I found in the back mill is sometimes I want to get down in there like a groundhog and pull that stuff out. So that means the blade would have to be going. So now my second choice is, or my other idea is, I got those lawnmowers in the back that I didn't pay poop for, and they have drives on the wheels, hydraulic drive. So I could run a hydraulic pump, okay? And if I run a hydraulic pump, I could run it off the back of the engine, okay? I have another alternative spot that I can drive it on the other side and put an electric clutch on it. This is all stuff that I have. It's an $800 pump that I got for, I think I paid maybe 50 bucks for it. But you have a drive up here, but then you have all this in the way. So I put a drive probably down to here, hook it up here, okay? And then just flip a switch, and then I could run the sawdust drag with hydraulics. So that's another thing, the chain drive with hydraulics. So that's another thing. So there's a lot of crap going on here that I just can't can't poop or get off the pot, so to speak, on which direction I want to go. So, you know, and I wait around a lot of times for good parts, but same with the hydraulics up there. Okay, you know, it's good. I got to run hydraulic lines, go over here, from both of those over here, because I want to run, actually I like the Chewy style log turner better than the, I think that's a 4C. That's what Jeffrey has down there. It works good, but it's, well, everything, turning logs ain't easy, okay? Now, another thing a lot of people said, I've gotten in, there's a gentleman down in, I think he's Mississippi, real nice gentleman, or maybe not, I don't know. I think he's kind of affiliated with Cotton Top. I think Wallace Farms or something, I'm not sure. Real nice guy, pretty wife, and she helps him out a lot. She's a good sawyer. I saw a saw log the other day. You need to go check him out. Look around. I should have written down his name, but you know me, I never forgot. Well, he put a winch up in the rafters. Now those rafters are, I don't know, 10, 12 feet high. And the rafters, these rafters here are on 4-foot centers, and we have a 24-foot span this way and a 42-foot span this way, okay? Those rafters are made for pushing down from the top, a snow load down, not a pull from the bottom. Now you're not picking this log here weighs 2,900 pounds. I looked it up on the scale. Now you're not going to be pulling 2,900 pounds, but you'd have to spread that weight over 4 of those, and even still, the pull down as opposed to the pull up, I mean, you have a split right there where it is, and you're not close to the edge. He's real close to the edge of his building. He's got, looks like handmade rafters. And then another guy says, well, just put a post in behind your carriage, a steel post in the ground and swing it out and stuff like that. By the time you start going to all that trouble, you might as well just get your little floor jack out or your little railroad jack and do it with a railroad jack. You know, you don't get monster logs like this all the time unless you're over at Wayne's World or up at Mark, now I forget his last name, Mark, Bus Motor Productions. He turned a big, I don't know, it must have been a 48, 50 inch log the other day. Anyhow, you know, I just don't get them like that all the often. Now, also, this thing is made to hold a 40-foot log in here. That's why I have a 42-foot span. And if I didn't have all this crap in here, okay, this is designed for space between here and here. So if push comes to shove, I can come in here with a loader, okay? But I just haven't got that far, and I have to, you know, saw more wood, but nobody wants to buy any wood. I have wood stickered everywhere. I had a job for this wood, and I don't remember what it, I remember with the first job, this is white oak, but anyhow, so that's what this opening here is for. It is for bringing monster logs down, and I still would set it on the bunk and stay away from that, because I could hit, with that loader, I could hit this down here, and that loader probably, as much as they're in, it should notice that it's there, okay? But I got a loader over here, and the height of this building is meant so I can come in here with that loader. I got 10 foot of clearance, 10 foot of clearance up there. I might have more than that, as I recall. I don't remember. But that's what that space was for, because, you know, working in the back, working in the front, I know the difference. And I have a 48-inch cherry log that just came in last night. It might come down here, and I might set it on there with that. I don't know, but I don't know that the carriage will go back. I don't think the carriage will go back that far. That was one thing I kind of screwed up in that aspect. But, you know, you just don't know what you did wrong until you do something and find out, oh crap, that ain't gonna work. So anyhow, that's some of the dilemma. You know, overhead chain is gonna get in the way of the top saw. If you're new here and never seen the top saw, we'll walk up there and take a look at it. Just because I'm killing time. It's a beautiful day out today, a little hot. They say it's gonna go up to 80 degrees and then a cold front and storm's coming through. It's finally dried out so I can get around in here. And then as soon as it dries out to where you can move around, then the next thing you know, you got rain again. I guess that's the way life is. So That's the elevator. I got to get working on the elevator. The guy I was talking to that dropped off the cherry logs is the one that's interested in this elevator. He's working on a wood lot down county someplace. I'm not sure where. This is the top saw frame. Okay. This is the top. That's the husk. See the husk, the three things? This is where your big blade would be, and then this saw sits up here with another 3-foot saw on top of it. This thing's all got to go get pressure washed and cleaned up and then put on. So everything on here is froze up. So my best thing to do would probably be get that on the saw first to know what I'm working around. So if I put that table in, will it work around that? See, there's that second roller again. This is I don't think I'm backwards. I might be backwards on this mill. That's the mandrel there. No, I'm backwards. That's behind the thing. Anyhow, that gives you a little bit of insight why don't you have a sawdust drag? Why don't you have a blower? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I got all that stuff. I'm waiting for the right move that doesn't cost me a bank loan to make it go in. I have the log turners down there, okay? Just the hydraulic lines probably run several $100s, which once again, that doesn't particularly bother me. You know, I got to buy a valve. That's going to be $300 to $400, and that's stuff that's got to be done. So the first thing is probably, and then I got to figure out how I'm going to drive it. Am I going to drive those hydraulic off the mandrel, or am I going to drive it off the Detroit? I'd rather drive them off the Detroit because then I can turn them off, turn them on with the blade going or not the blade going. You're not committed to having that blade running around while you're doing different things. So I hope that explains a lot of the stuff. Also got to build some walls down in here, which I just got plastic in. You can't really tell down here, but the sawdust came back this way, and that's everything on that little mill in the back that was problematic is why this mill was designed in the areas that it's designed. This is a grate here, so nothing will build up here. It'll go down, it'll just drop below. But then how are you going to get it off? If you bring a 16-inch line off there and wire it off, that was one thing. If you do the, I don't know how to explain it. If you're vacuuming up sawdust on your shop, you have to have the end of that vacuum 3 inches from the sawdust. It won't suck more than 3 inches. Okay? So, now if you blow it with a blower, you could probably blow that sawdust 10 feet away. But if you're vacuuming it up, if you guys know what I'm talking about, the end of that vacuum has got to be almost on top of where that sawdust is. So, and there's a way to do it. I mean, Frick had a frame that went around that saw blade that was probably 2 inches wide on each side of that saw blade, and covered the lower half of that saw blade, and then there was a big tube that went into it that went over to their blower that was over in that corner. But that scares the crap out of me, because if you drop a fairly good sized stick down in there, it can't go down on the ground. It's got to stay into that pit, and then it's going up into the roof or coming back at you like a bullet. So I really didn't care for that idea at all. So hope that sums it up. I don't think the rafters are strong enough, and I'm not willing to gamble on those rafters being strong enough to twirl one of these. Too far from the back to put a beam up. Yeah, I could drill a hole and pour cement and all that kind of stuff. Go out and buy a, you know, $200 or $300 winch. And that kind of stuff, you know. So, and there, on these two Chewies, there's a lot of work involved. You just don't put it in overnight. I don't know. Things are getting a lot heavier as I'm getting older. So that's just some of the things. So that's on the two log turners. I have log turners, and this log turner here has turned logs for 30 years. Sawdust drag is kind of what my next thing is, because I just don't like going down in there and groundhogging the sawdust out. But then the chain's got to go way out there. There's just so many goofy little things that a lot of people, yeah, it's easy to write a quick comment on just do this, just do that, just do this, just do that, or you should have, or why don't you, why don't you, why don't you. And this is maybe will give you some of those answers if you're one of the people that did a why don't you, why shouldn't you, didn't do this, and you've come back. So anyhow, I appreciate you being here and hope that answered some of the questions. There's still more questions that I don't even know that I didn't answer. So thanks for being here. Bye-bye.